So in terms of leadership and in my new role, I've been asking people questions and kind of getting to know folks. And one of the questions that I've been asking folks is, where did you learn leadership? Or what was one of your best experiences of leadership? And if you ask me the question of where I learned leadership, I learned it in the Boy Scouts of America. I was a Cub Scout. I was a Boy Scout. The Boy Scouts of America is an excellent organization in teaching leadership. The patrol method in moving up through different responsibilities. I started out as an assistant patrol leader, where you help out with a group of 8 to 12 boys. Later was a patrol leader, and with the guidance of other boys and wonderful adult mentors, continued to grow in that role. Was just a wonderful experience. I eventually ended up moving on to the role of a senior patrol leader. That is a leader of all of the patrol leaders. And my troop was very large. I think there were probably about 75 boys when I was senior patrol leader. As I was in that role, I was mentored. My scoutmaster was excellent, was a very active troop. And so that's really where I learned leadership. But it's also where I had some failures and some disappointments. And one of those I wanted to tell you about. One of the things that I had the chance to do was to compete in a national competition called the Youth Leadership Award. Had to fill out numerous forms and share the program that I was privileged to be a part of. And so that those materials went on, and I actually won on the district level, which was very exciting, and then went on to the regional level where I was defeated, where I lost. Of course, that's disappointing. And one of the questions, of course, you ask at that point is, well, why did I not move on to that next level? And the response that was given was that the materials that I had written focused and used the pronoun I quite often, and not we. And that was why I did not advance on. And that's a leadership lesson that I have taken ever since, being 17. In fact, I thought of that recently when my call committee chairman and I were having a conversation after the call process was over. And he shared that as part of the call process, there were numerous roster leader profiles that he and the team reviewed. And he said it stood out to them that most of those roster leader profiles talked about I did this, and I did this, and I developed this program. And my call committee chairman said mine stood out because mine had a lot of we's in it. And I knew exactly where I had learned that lesson, that great things are accomplished not by I, but by we, by teamwork. I thought of the value of teamwork just more recently. I was listening to a podcast, was on prochurchtools.com, and it was an interview with Carey Nieuwhof. I don't know if you know Carey. He's an excellent church leader. He actually has one of the most popular church leader blogs. He's a Canadian pastor up north of Toronto. And Carey's interview had the provocative title that I said, I gotta listen to this and find out what his thought on this was, why your church isn't growing. And I saw that title, why your church isn't growing, and immediately I started thinking, I wonder what direction he'll go. Will he talk about a theology of evangelism and the passion we need to have for the Great Commission? Will Carey talk about maybe tips and techniques and skills that we need to have a growing church? Maybe he'll talk about how the relationship between society has changed with the church. We all know that the church is not held in esteem as it maybe once was. I was really intrigued, and as Carey started into it, it was very clear that his answer to that was teamwork. He actually went on and talked a little bit about the ma and pa store. And he said, how the ma and pa store, ma and pa do everything, in comparison to the supermarket, where you need a much larger team and the team needs to use all the gifts and talents and skills that are required for the larger organization to function properly. And then he went into the scriptural description of that. It's an excellent passage in Acts 6, the reminder that in the early church, as the church is growing, that there is a need to care for the poor and the widows. And the disciples make the observation, very vital observation about team. They say, it is not right for us to neglect the word of God to wait on tables. And if you know the story in Acts 6, they call 7 more leaders. They grow the leadership team so that they can be about all the ministry that they're called to do. There's also a corresponding passage in the book of Exodus in the 18th chapter where Moses is trying to do too much, and Jethro, his father-in-law, comes and gives him his advice. He says, you're wearing yourself and the people out. And they grow the team. There's this great value in teamwork, that we need each other across the breadth and depth of our synod. And in our congregations, we need that sense of team. I was reminded of this just a little while ago. I was talking with a Lutheran colleague, and they were commenting on a rapidly growing church in his community. I think maybe it was the local United Methodist pastor. And he said, I know this guy pretty well. And I got to tell you, he is not particularly charismatic. He's just not one of those people gravitate around him. And he said, and I've heard him preach, and he's really not a very good preacher. He said, I think the thing that he's best at, what he seems to have a talent at, is enlisting other people in ministry. And he had pointed to the fact that I think that's why his church is growing, is that skill of building up the team, that value and that importance to team, that we really do need each other to be fully about a team.